Welcome back to One and All on the day 5, session 3rd of the day. I would like to introduce our resource person for the session on speaking skills, Mr. Gaurav Kumar. He's a master trainer and professional developer. He's working with Directorate of Education and having 17 years plus experience. He is currently serving the department as a mentor teacher and also completed TESOL course certificate program in 2017. He received the Fulbright DAI 2018 scholarship and was in USA for his semester-long participation in the program. So here I would welcome Mr. Gaurav Kumar sir for the session. We can say that one Fulbrighter is with us to enlighten us with his thoughts on the topic speaking skills. Over to you, Gaurav.
Well, thank you so much. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Sarika ma'am, for such a generous introduction, and I feel humbled. And I would like to say that all of us here are like colleagues working in the same department. And what I know, I would just like to share that. And at the very same time, I would like to listen to what you people understand and what you people feel about while they're inside of the classroom. So let's start with so speaking skill, and we are going to talk about the practical aspect of it. So first things first, there are four things whenever we talk about any language, and these things are listening, speaking, reading, and writing. So while inside the classroom, which skill we as teachers feel should be given in the first place? You can put your responses in the chat box, please. Out of the four skills, speaking, reading, writing, which skill should come first?
Speaking.
Uh,
Listening.
mhm. Yeah, you can put your responses in the chat box, please. Yeah. Then at the same time, if I change my question to what is the natural sequence of acquiring or learning a language? What is the natural sequence? What comes first when we acquire or learn? Is it or speaking, reading, writing? Okay. Nisha has said listening, then
Listening.
Priyanka listening.
So it's
Okay.
listening, speaking,
Is
listening. So number one,
mm-hmm.
listening. Number
Mm-hmm.
two, speaking. Number three, reading.
Yeah.
And number four, writing.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you so much. And as soon as we realize that the sequence goes like L, S, R, W, we need to understand, is it the same that is going on inside of the classroom? Or have we learned or acquired the language same ways inside the classroom? Do we really start by listening and then follow speaking and then?
No, sir, this sequence is not followed in classroom.
What do we
No,
actually
sir,
do?
this sequence is not followed in our.
Mhm.
We in primary classes, so we let children write A for apple and
Okay.
B for ball.
Most often we start either by reading or by writing. And see, this is where the problem starts. This is where we realize when we enter into an age where speaking becomes a necessity, that okay, speaking for
But,
some got so much ignored that we are not feeling comfortable while speaking to someone in English or in any other language than than our mother tongue. So let's
so as teacher,
focus.
so as teachers, actually, we have to keep a record,
Mhm.
and I think that is why we can't follow the pattern. It should be like, ideally it should be like that only, but your oral work or the work, the listening and the
Okay.
speaking word, it's not at all recorded. So it may create problem, and the HOS and officers want the written record.
Okay. A written record, do you mean maintaining a teacher ID or something else?
So I'm telling about the children notebooks that we make them write, because we have to
All right.
show ki what work have you done in your classroom. So the ideal sequence is not followed, according to me.
Mhm. Okay. Hmm. Please keep this question in mind and your statements, because this is a very important statement, and this statement is going to help us all to develop this today's session further. That for the sake of record keeping, or maybe for the sake of the examination system that we have in place, and the examination system that is primarily based upon reading and writing skills, we oftentimes end up ignoring the two very basic aspects of language, that is listening and. So we will talk a lot about all these problems and issues, and we will see if there is any way by which we can just maintain a balance between what the authorities see and what actually is needed per hour. Let's move ahead and let's see. What is speaking? So, simply put, if you can go through the definition of speaking, so you can find that it is merely producing meaningful sounds. It can convey feelings, things that are meant to be listened by someone. One can question that, okay, if nobody that is not listening, at least you are listening to your own self. So is ever and whenever you put your ideas, your messages, and your feelings into words in a loud enough manner that somebody can listen to that, is simply speaking. Okay. Important question once again. Used both words, learn as well as acquire. My question is, do we learn a language or do we acquire it? What is your opinion about it? You can put in the chat box, please. Do we learn a language or do we acquire it? A mother tongue or a second language or other language, what do we do? Okay, Monica is saying we acquire it. Even Poonamji is saying, yeah, we acquire the language. Then Pragya is saying both. We acquire, we learn, we do it both ways. Okay. Mhm. If we talk about our mother tongue, we acquire it. Jyoti is saying, okay. And Jyoti ji, what about some other language or second language like English? Do we acquire it or do we learn it? Hmm. Agrees that in case of a second or other language, we learn it. Mhm. Now, whenever learning happens, that reflect.
So your voice is breaking at some places.
Mhm. But my
So
argument
your
is
voice is
that,
breaking at some places. Hello.
am I audible?
At some places your voice is breaking, sir. At some places.
Okay, is it clear and audible now? I would the orientation. See, is it now? Sarika,
Gaurav sir, your voice is not audible. Can you repeat, please?
hello, am I
Am I audible?
just try?
Yeah,
Okay, is it now, ma'am? Oh yes, you're. Yeah, is it
yeah,
audible?
it is
Is my
audible.
voice audible now?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, let's move ahead. Yeah. So what I was saying, my argument to this theory that we learn a second or other language and we acquire our mother tongue, that whenever learning happens, there is a predictable path. There is something that can be predicted that this is how learning goes. Do we see that we can predict the path of learning of our students inside the classroom? My question is, whenever we teach in class English as a second or other language, can we predict the path of learning? You can put your response in the chat box. Any responses? When we teach English as a second or other language in the classroom, okay, I'm going to repeat it. When we teach English as a second or other language in the classroom, can we predict the path of learning? Am I audible now? Okay. Yeah. Yes, it can be predicted. Okay. Okay. Now, see, if you say that we can predict the language learning, as we are calling it, not acquisition, then why it so happens that sometimes in our own home, we have some young kids, maybe 2.5, 3 year old, and suddenly they come up with a very, you know, difficult, seemingly difficult dialogue out of nowhere, and we wonder how come such a young child is speaking this word or speaking this dialogue. And then we end up realizing that he might have got that dialogue from a cartoon that he was watching on the TV the other day. So if that thing is happening, and if the child is trying to copy what a cartoon character was speaking the other day, this just cannot be predicted, right? You agree with me or disagree? Oftentimes, we find our children using the vocab that elders were using at some time, even though the child is not very clear about the meaning of the word that he was using. But he was using it because some cartoon character or someone else, some elder in the house was using the word. Do we agree with it or not? You can even speak if you want to counter to it or you agree with it. Yes, it happens. Yes. So, the very process when we see a child just merely copy the words being spoken by some adults or some cartoon characters, even without being very sure of the meaning of those words, it makes language as acquired and not as learned. So, my conclusion to this discussion would be that we acquire the language, be it a mother tongue or even if it's a second or other language. Then why do we feel that we learn a second language? Because in our typical classroom, such an environment is constructed that we always feel that we start learning a second language with A, B, C, then we continue, mugging up all the grammatical rules, and then eventually we continue writing those simple and compound and complex sentences. So when we go through this process, we start getting a feel that language is being learned and not acquired, forgetting at the same time that even in a very young age, there are words, there are phrases that young children use even without realizing what the meaning is, just because they have listened to those words and phrases someplace. This is acquisition. Now, if we are acquiring, then should we really need to teach speaking skills in a classroom? If it is being acquired, one can argue that, okay, if it is being acquired, any which way it is being acquired, there is no need to teach speaking inside the classroom. Point is, yes, we need to teach. What do we need to teach? We need to teach a way by which the acquisition can become systematic. So, with agreeing to the fact that language is acquired, we need to systematize the process in which the language is being acquired by the child. Most often, when I argue this with my fellow teachers, one classic response comes my way that our students don't have any environment of English around them. And since they don't have any environment, it is impossible for them to be comfortable with English acquisition. Now, it's okay. If I agree with you that there is no environment at their home, at least in their school, they can be provided with an environment for those 45 minutes that is there with you, the child is spending. So, the argument is that yes, we can give a direction to the acquisition of language for a child inside a classroom for those 45 minutes when the child is with us. How does this happen? It's very simple. If you and me are interacting with each other in Hindi at the moment, all of us would end up thinking in Hindi and speaking in Hindi. Then if suddenly somebody starts speaking English, it would take a few moments, even for learned educators like ourselves, to retune ourselves to the English. And then we start thinking in English and then we start responding in English. But if, for example, I have started the session in English itself, all of us are naturally in the mind frame wherein we are thinking in English, and it becomes very easy for all of us to reflect in English as well. Same things work for a child in the classroom. If we keep on speaking, giving directions in Hindi in the classroom and teaching English to our children, trust me, there would never be a moment our children would become comfortable and confident in speaking inside the classroom. We need to start by giving that basic environment where we as teachers should be modeling the concept of speaking English in the class, and then the child would copy, the child would acquire, and the child would become confident. This is my argument. Now, let's move ahead. For example, have you ever noticed some of those warm-up activities that are given inside the classroom? Like this one. Who did Patrick's homework? So see, the question is, discuss in class. Do you like homework? Do you do it yourself? Or do you get help? What homework do you usually have? So see, all these questions are typical open-ended questions prompting a child to speak at length with each other or with the teacher. Here, the purpose is not to let the child write the answers of these questions in the notebook. Here, the purpose is, simply generating some discussion around these questions in the classroom. Here, the purpose is to give that environment where the students can talk to each other around this topic. So, it is very evident that if textbooks want the children to talk to each other, and when we agree to this, we understand, especially in a language classroom, the concept of pin drop silence is a very, very irrelevant concept. We just can't say that a language class would go with a pin drop silence. And if it is going so, trust me, something is wrong there. A language class has to be there, full of chitter chatter, full of speaking. Condition is that speaking has to be well channelized, well directed, well guided by the efforts of the teachers. Now, it further says teachers have to provide authentic practice that prepares the students for those real life communication. Oftentimes our students, they can mimic very well. If you ask your students, they can tell you exactly what sort of announcement is going on in English in a metro train. The next time you face the class, you can ask this question and you'd be surprised that many of your students can tell you exactly how the announcement system in a metro train works in English, even if they are not very clear about the meaning. Next, they have to help their students develop and to produce grammatically correct sentences and statements. Now, there is a catch here. Nobody, trust me, nobody can acquire or learn a language without committing mistakes first. Think of that 2.5, 3-year-old kid at your home, maybe your own kid, maybe your cousin, maybe somebody else you know very well in your relation. Whenever those kids, they speak with perfect impurity, how much we enjoy that. All the mistakes that they commit while they are speaking, we laugh at them with love. We just, make sort of arrangements and environment where the child end up speaking the same impure conversation again and again so that we can enjoy it more and more. Scene change. Now a child is there in class 6 or class 7. It is the same child who is acquiring English as a language for the very first time. Now what happens when he or she commits a mistake? Oftentimes we get angry. Oftentimes we start correcting the child immediately. Oftentimes we feel kind of upset. Why? He is such a grown-up child. He's almost 12, 13 years old. Why can't he speak correctly? Well, very well said that we need to enjoy the mistakes more so in a language classroom. We have to celebrate. So very right, Jyoti ji. If we haven't been doing it so far, let's start doing it now. Language cannot be mastered without committing mistakes, without mispronunciation. You cannot master a language. Even today, when we are English teachers, we are educators, there are sounds we are uncomfortable with. There must be certain words we are not sure how to pronounce. So it is very natural. And in fact, it is these flaws of pronunciation which makes the personality of a person, which makes that person unique and different from others, which makes him kind of cute, kind of attractive at times. So we must enjoy the flaws, but at the same time, we need to teach them enough so that they can start self-correcting themselves. So the concept of self-analysis and the concept of self-correction should be induced in the students while they are in a language classroom. We need to teach them vocabulary. Yes, this is important because most often they know what to say. They don't know the words using which they can say that. Then again, teaching grammar, teach pronunciation, intonation. Yes, it is important. While we need to teach them how to pronounce, we also need to teach them where to stop, what pitch of voice is to be used. We need to teach them how to reflect our feelings, our sentiments, our emotions with the help of the pitch of the voice. All these things are needed to be introduced, are needed to be guided into our children inside the classroom. We equip them with everything they need to speak confidently and fluently. Let's move ahead now. So, yeah, providing real life situation is something very, very important. Time and again, it is being focused. We need to give those real life situation to our children. How can that be done? That can be done. Teachers should create a classroom environment where students have real life communication, authentic activities, meaningful tasks, and promote oral language. It can be started by as simple as the very first phrase that the child uses when he comes to a school. Can you recall? For me, the phrase is, may I come in, sir or ma'am? Now, how often have we observed that the children are not speaking this phrase correctly? Some of them end up saying, my come in, sir or ma'am. Some of them end up saying, I come in, sir or ma'am. Now, the question is, how often do we bother to correct it in the first place? So we need to make arrangements and we need to be mindful that whenever our child is using phrases, we need to give them the correctness with which they can be confident of using that phrase for life. Otherwise, we end up getting children who even in 10th or 11th class keep saying, my come in, sir, or I come in, sir. So let us start by being real. Let us start by using all those items that the child is already using, his pen, his pencil, all the chips or biscuits he is eating, all the information that is there on the wrapper of that chips or chocolate or biscuit. That information is there in English, and a child knows that perfectly. We need to manipulate that information to make the learning real. And this is how it should be done. Let's move ahead. Some of the speaking activities that can be started at a level when the child sort of becomes comfortable with speaking is weaving a story. Simply show them a picture and you can ask them to weave a story around. And all these activities, trust me, give better results when they are being conducted in groups. So make the groups, make sort of heterogeneous groups. Students with different level of speaking should be included in one group, and then ask them to work with each other on all these activities, weaving a story, giving, asking for directions, talking about a map, describing a picture, making a story, looking at a picture, or describing a real object. Realia, even realia can be used. Yes, which is sort of quite important, and we need to understand that definitely these are the activities that we need in order to make the child comfortable. Other than that, some more formal activities can be discussions. After a content-based lesson, a discussion can be held for various reasons. Students may aim to arrive at a conclusion, share ideas about an event, or find solutions in their discussion groups. Before the discussion, it is essential that the purpose of the discussion activity is set by the teacher. So you see, there can be different purpose of a discussion. That purpose has to be clear to the teacher, and at the same time teacher has to make that purpose clear to the student in order to give the discussion a proper direction. Role play, a very common, a very interesting, a very fun way of making students confident in English. So teachers simply give information to the learners, and then learners eventually end up making their own script, either by writing or using any other way in groups, obviously, and then they go for the role play. Next, there are simulation. We ask our students to simulate. We ask our students to simulation is kind of a role play at a micro level. Somebody is a policeman, somebody is a postman, somebody is a doctor. What it does, it helps the learners to learn and acquire specific vocabulary. A vocabulary that is specific to a particular vocation. So whatever vocation is being simulated by the learner is bound to acquire the specific vocabulary that is needed. Let's move ahead. Then, information gap. That's interesting. What is it? Students are supposed to be working in pairs for this. One student will have the information that other partner does not have, and the partner will share their part with each other. So the same story, the same lesson can be used by a pair of students, where we can assign one student, say, read about the first two paragraphs, and B student read about the next two paragraphs. And then we can ask both of them to talk to each other and share whatever they have read in their respective paragraphs. This is how they fill in the information gap that remains there with each student. This is a very good way to talk, to let the students to talk into something that is well guided by the teacher. Brainstorming. Yes, brainstorming can be started by, asking the students for specific simple words or phrases. There is no need that the students speak complete sentences. Brainstorming is on a given topic where students can produce ideas in a limited time, depending on the context, either individual or group brainstorming. It is effective to generate ideas quickly. The good characteristics of brainstorming is that the students are not criticized for their ideas, so students will be open to sharing new ideas. Another added advantage is because there is no requirement of completing and correcting the sentence grammatically. Here we are just asking the student to give keywords or phrases. Students become more confident and they come up with brilliant ideas. And then those ideas can further be developed with the help of teacher into meaningful sentences and statements, and the child eventually end up learning that syntactical pattern in which a sentence has to be written either in past, present, or future tense. Storytelling, yes, we have already sort of discussed about it. It can be either by showing a picture, it can be maybe by providing some sort of character, and students can also do it in groups. They can discuss and then they can come up with a group story, and the idea can be shared as a presentation with the classroom. Then picture narration. Yeah, picture narration is especially lucrative for students because they are fond of cartoons. So if we can use any of the popular cartoon character and we can show them different pictures of that, students, they can definitely end up having. Oh yeah, is my voice is audible? Sarika ma'am,
Yes,
am I
sir.
audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
okay, okay. I have just got a
Yes, sir, you
comment
are
in the
audible.
chat box section. Okay, okay, fine. Thank you, thank you. Yeah. So picture narration can be done, right? And with the help of cartoon characters, we can sort of make it more interesting. And every single point of time, may I remind you, please be a child while you are talking to them. Please don't be a teacher, otherwise you would never be able to talk to them. If at all you can do something as a teacher is passing on instructions and directions, nothing else. If we have to talk to them, if we have to teach them how to talk confidently, we have to be a kid just like 1 or 2 years elder to them to teach them. Then let's go ahead. Reporting. Yes, uh, at a level, maybe I can say at an intermediate level, when the child is a bit confident that yes, now I can syntaxize my sentences in a proper formation and I can use grammatically correct structures to reflect myself, we can take help of reporting. We can show news clippings to the children, and then we can assign them the topic and ask them to come up with a report of that news on that topic the next day, which they can share with their classmates. Picture describing is more or less picture narration in a more complex manner. Then there is speech. Yeah, we can ask the students to speak on particular topics. So initially, the topic can be given to them maybe 2 days ahead of the schedule so that they can prepare their speech sitting at home. Do encourage them to make a list of the key words or phrases and not to write complete sentences in their speech. And then to develop their sentences impromptu on the spot. This will help them becoming confident and natural with their speaking patterns. Then there are certain low beginning phrases which can be used for the beginners to tell them how to greet, to introduce. We can give them sentence structures with the help of which they can introduce themselves, they can introduce other people, they can identify people or things, classroom questions, asking for information, giving information, simple sentences. Then numbers, counting, talking about the family, the favorite thing, describing people, all these things. I'm pretty sure all of you do them pretty often in your classroom. Life events, feelings and health, likes and dislikes, shopping, short question and answer, closing conversation, expressing thanks or gratitude, or sometimes giving them situation as if they're in a post office, they're in a bank, they're at a store, how to speak, and then talking about occupation. Obviously, it is much like the simulation practice that we've had. And with this, I close my presentation. I thank you all so much, and I invite you to ask your questions. If you have any, you can put those questions in the chat box, or you can ask them right on. Thank you so much. any questions, any reflections, maybe any disagreements that you've had during the session, and out of your generosity you didn't express at that point of time, you can share that as well.
Thank you so much, Gaurav sir, for the wonderful session. Our participants hopefully enjoyed it a lot. And as they mentioned that speaking is something which can be acquired or skilled is a question which you have answered very beautifully. So once again, I would like to thank you from the whole Inset as well as Diet SCRT team. I would request our participants to join again at 12:50 for another session with
Thank
Dr.
you
Seema
so
Yadav.
much. Thank you so much, Sarika ma'am. Special thanks and gratitude to you for coordinating the sessions beautifully. And thank you so much, all the participants, for listening in patiently. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Gaurav.